Hi, I'm Anthony from Sydney Backyard Veggies. It's been quite a wet start to the weekend, so I wasn't able to get out in the garden earlier on, but I'm finally out and I have a fair bit of work I need to do on my capsicums and my eggplants. At that stage now where I need to start healing and fertilizing them. But before I do that, I just want to show you what work I've been doing on my cucumbers this morning. And over here, I've got my cucumber planting. That's at the back row there is the burpless variety called Green Dragon, and at the front here I've got my Magpie, the slicing cucumber variety. And what I have done is, because the plants are starting to, as you can see there, starting to vine, I've decided to install my string trellis system. And this is the system I use every year. It's a system that you can see in a lot of my other videos, where the idea is the plants are trained along the string up towards the top of the structure, and it keeps the plants off the floor. And just to give you a rundown on the setup, I've got star pickets, about 1.8 meters long pickets all the way across the row, spaced at about 1.5 meters apart. Bamboo posts at the top and the bottom as a horizontal member, and then I'm running my string line. I use baling twine just from the top to the bottom all the way to the top. I use cable ties just to fix the posts in place. And when it comes to training the vine to the string, you can see I just wrap it around in a clockwise direction, and using a little hook here in the leaf, it actually just holds quite well. And as the plant grows, I will continue to twist the vine in a clockwise direction all the way up the line. Over here with this new vine, and you can just see it's long enough now to be trained. And what I'm doing is just twisting it gently around the string line, grabbing it into that little gap there that you can see there in the leaf, and it sits right there and it's held. Now as it grows again, I'll just continue to twist that line across, and as the plant gets older, the vine will harden up around that string and actually stay quite well supported in that spot. Now as the cucumber vines put out some side shoots, I will add additional lines to train those side shoots, and I end up having a full wall of cucumbers vines coming up here. What I'll be doing at the moment is I've just continued on the second vine, and these plants are still quite short, so they can't be trained. But what I'll be looking at is actually installing additional lines for these ones now. So once they get a bit longer, in about a week's time, I can train them. So I'm going to run a few strings now and try to get this job finished off. Yeah, just finished off adding those final string lines, and now I'm ready to train those plants once they get long enough to reach the string. Although my second planting of cucumbers are looking really good, can't say much for my first planting of cucumbers, and I'm actually might be biting the bullet, ripping them out and starting again. But this is the first planting that I did. Yeah, this is the variety is called Craig, and this was my greenhouse variety, and I don't know, just not looking fantastic. It might have the case of spider mites that may have moved in already and started to knock around my plants. I lost a lot really earlier on. A lot of the little plants will die one by one, but yeah, it's just a real disappointment because these seeds aren't cheap, and I was hoping that they will be almost producing at the moment. I may save this one and possibly that one, but I'm thinking I might potentially just rip out the whole lot and replant them with a new batch of seeds. At the moment I'm going to give them a few more days to see if they'll bounce back. I may put individual stakes just to support them off the ground, but if they don't bounce back, I will rip this whole bed out and start again. So look, I mean, I guess sometimes for whatever reason, plants planted in one location do great, and then seedlings planted in another location don't do as well. But that's the fun of growing veggies. But in any case, I need to do a bit of work on my capsicums and my eggplants today, and that is my capsicum patch. And if you remember, this is the patch that I treated for aphid damage, and you can just see that it's looking beautiful at the moment, full of flowers and looking quite clean and actually nice size at the moment. This is the size I sort of want them to be at. Now at this stage I want to do two things. I want to give them a slight prune, I want to add a little bit of extra fertilizer, and I want to give them their initial stake. Now with my pruning, what I'm trying to do is actually remove a lot of the lower leaf matter and material, because I'm actually going to be healing these plants after I apply my fertilizer and do my staking. So just looking at the plant here, the first one, I'm going to be removing a lot of these leaves. Now you can probably remove them with your finger, but I'm going to be covering, because the soil is going to be coming up hard up against the base, I'm going to be needing to remove a lot of these lower leaves, just using my scissors. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of pruning. Now that I've finished pruning my capsicums, it's time for me to add my fertilizer. Now with all fruiting plants, at this stage when they start flowering, I like to really focus on increasing the potassium and the phosphorus levels in my fertilizer at the expense of nitrogen. Although I do still want to add a little bit of nitrogen to keep the plant growing, the real focus here is on potassium and phosphorus to really get those big yields and the big fruit on those plants. On basically each of the plants, I'm going to be adding first and foremost a bit of chicken manure pellets. This is AgriBoost, otherwise known as Dynamic Lifter, but there's plenty of different brands that you could use, or do essentially the same thing and have the same sort of mix. And to increase the potassium and phosphorus levels in my mix, I'm going to be adding some sulfate of potash and superphosphate. And I'll just mix this up, and again I'll just put a small pour around the base of each of the plants. And with applying my fertilizer, just a little pour at the base, chicken manure pellets, and then with my potash and superphosphate, just a little pour like that, and that's plenty for now. Fertilizer is now being applied right at the base of each of the plants, and now what I'm going to be doing is I need to support these plants, so I will be adding stakes to them. But before I do that, as with all my plants, I'm going to be moving the soil with my hoe in the middle up to the base of the plant. Now this is more to just give it a lot more support, because they are, as you can see, this one starting to lean a bit, especially when we had those large winds a week or so ago. So I prefer to hill the soil, and it's a simple matter of just moving the soil with my hoe from the middle and from the sides and bringing it up hard up against the base of the plant. Now when it comes to staking the capsicums, I'm just going to be using 1200 high bamboo stakes that I've got left over. Just cut them to a little short. Now this is probably not the long length I need, but as they get larger I'll add a different system. But for now I just want to support them from blowing around. Gonna get one on each side of the plant, and then I'll just tie the plant back to each of the stakes so it doesn't get blown around in the wind. And with my cotton strips, I'm just going to tie it back to the post, just in a figure eight, just not overly tight, but just enough to hold it from being blown around. And as the plant gets bigger, I will change the tie arrangement, but for now this is sufficient. Just finished staking those capsicums. You can see what I've done is just added a stake on each side, strapped the plant down, and they're all well supported now. Now these stakes are a little low, but that's fine. The plants should get just about that high, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I will, as the season gets along and I start adding my fruit fly netting, I'll add additional supports to keep those plants upright. But happy that these are done now, and they should really perform with all that fertiliser and this extra staking. Expecting to harvest, like last year I harvested in late November. I don't know what's going on this year, but I'm hoping by mid-December I'll be harvesting green capsicums, and I will start installing my fruit fly netting in that mid-December time. Back out in the patch today. It's been quite a warm day today. It's over in the 30 degree plus weather, and I'm going to go do a bit of work on my eggplants this time. But before I do that, I want to show you what I did last few days on my capsicums and my jalapenos. I did finally come through and heal these and stake them. So I've gone and added the fertilizer as well and staked the yellow capsicums. The jalapenos still a little bit small. I will stake them over the next few weeks, or next few days. And I've got a few jalapenos showing up here, and also my crop of capsicums showing here. So they're looking quite good at the moment. And the other capsicums as well, looking great. Staked more flowers on these ones, starting to flower a little bit more, which is good. I think they're starting to respond a lot better to the fertilizer. But I am moving now to my eggplant, and my eggplant has been doing a lot better than most of my other crops, and so much so that they've got a little bit of fruit showing on them, as you can just see right there. This variety is called Monocasa, and unfortunately, as you can see there, because it's been sitting in the soil, it's been eaten by slugs. I'll pick that and feed it to chickens, but I do have another one over here, and this one's almost ready to harvest as well. The unfortunate thing is that when these plants do produce, they do produce quite low, and they are touching the floor. So unfortunately, the first few fruit that I do harvest off these plants does seem to, you know, go to waste, go to the chickens. And then also this hot weather we've been having, I've been having a little bit of a disease on some of these lower leaves on this one, and it's the same issue that I'm having, I believe, on this plant as well. Some of the leaves have just been burnt. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it is just a little bit of hotter weather that we've been having, but I can't seem to see it on any other plant. But what I'm going to be doing is very similar to what I did on my capsicums. I'm going to do a removal of the lower shoots, because I am going to heal these plants as well. I'm going to be adding exactly the same fertilizer to these plants that I added to my capsicums, and then I'll heal these plants. Just as I was adding that fertilizer and healing those plants, I had a little bit of a storm come through, so everything's a little bit wet. But what I'm doing is I'm going to be setting up my trellis system for these plants, and I'm going to do something a little bit different with my eggplants. Rather than giving them stakes for each plant individually and tie it to them, I find that they get very big towards the end of the season in March and April. So instead of having individual stakes, what I'll be doing is actually building a trellis system where I'm going to be putting a couple of posts along the sides and running bamboo across the outside of these vertical members, and having the plant sit and drape over the sides. And the idea there is I'll be able to keep the plants sort of compact, held up against the trellis system, rather than just taking each branch individually. As they get bigger and the fruit gets heavier, these eggplants seem to sprawl everywhere, so having them something to keep them close and compact would be good. And it gives me a chance to tie each of these stakes, each of the branches, if needed, directly onto those bamboo horizontal stakes. Now what I'm going to be doing is running horizontal members, so again, short pieces of bamboo, and using cable ties, which I find are really useful in this situation, is to just fix those bamboo stakes to the posts, and then that way, when as the plant grows and it starts leaning over onto the stake, it will support it. Just finished setting up the trellis, and as you can see, I've got my two bamboo sticks coming horizontally across the line. The idea is it'll keep the plants supported as they get larger and they start leaning across onto the posts. And I will continue adding additional stakes across the across the plants as they get taller, and hopefully this will keep the plants sort of boxed in. Now I will, as their plants get bigger, potentially put some additional cross pieces to further box it in, a bit of a cage kind of like, to keep the plants standing straight. So over here I'd probably put a bamboo straight across here just to hold the plant up like that. But for now I'm going to leave them as is, and I'm expecting I'll be having at least another 4 to 5 members coming across this plant, across this trellis system as the plants get larger. Now as for the health of the plants, I've had a quick look at them, and look, although they look okay, one thing I'm noticing, and if you can just see here on the paper, on the leaf, you can see that little splotching. I'm not sure if it shows up in the camera, a little bit of spotting on the leaves, and if you turn around in the back you can just see that little telltale spotting and little red dots there. For me, what I'm seeing here, you can probably see it a little bit there as well, what I'm seeing here is evidence of spider mite. Now they're not too bad, and you've even got a little bit of, you can just see that right there, a little bit of spider mite. Now although it's not, well, it's getting a bit worse on this one, you can probably just see those little red marks, which are the spider mites themselves. Now it's not overly serious at the moment, but I'm anxious. It is starting to spread on these plants, so I'm going to need to add some wettable sulfur, and I'll do that tomorrow morning. I'm not going to do it today. It's actually been a really hot day today, 30+ degrees, and sulfur, although it's a great miticide, can cause burning if used in really hot weather. And speaking of spider mites, again on my tomatoes I've noticed as well, as you can see on here, the little browning that's happening on this plant here potentially is a sign of spider mites. This is what I'm getting over here, that mottled brown color, that's a sign of spider mites. So these tomatoes as well will be getting a spray of wettable sulfur. And before I wrap up this video, I get asked a lot in my comments what I do with all my produce, so I just wanted to show you just what I've been using, the harvest that I've been having over the last week or so, how we've been using it in the kitchen. With the green stewing beans, we've been making a lot of bean stew, otherwise called lubi blahmi, which is essentially a stewed lamb with bean dish, and Mum's been making that for us over the few weeks, and it's eating on a better rice, and it's amazing. The kids love it. We've also been making a lot of fattoush, which is a Lebanese style salad with as many vegetables as you can put in there, and also dry toasted Lebanese bread, again another family favorite. I've also harvested my first harvest of my parsley patch over here, and this was cut at the start of the week, and I harvested it all. Now it's starting to grow back quickly, but what we did during the week, we were able to make a lot of tabbouleh out of that parsley. Again, tabbouleh is a parsley based salad with a bit of cracked wheat and tomato. It's really refreshing. So really happy to be able to harvest my crops from my garden one day and the next day convert that into meals for the family. It's really rewarding, and it's a good way to use your produce that you grow out of your garden. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. I really appreciate all the support. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment on this video, or reach out to me via my socials on TikTok or Instagram, or send me an email on the email in the description notes. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.